What's up, you guys? It's me, Tailman was Happy Prefer, and it's been who knows how long since my last tutorial video. I've been mainly because of the fact I've been trying to figure out how to explain things in a way where anyone who's never even ever picked up a piece of paper and tape and scissors, and just watch a tutorial and then learn just the basics of how I do most of my mechanisms. Because, like I've said many times before, the reason why I'm so hesitant to do tutorials is because my usual work process and mechanisms and just general, all-around method of doing things is just doing it in a way it works. I don't measure things out. I don't plan anything. I just go at it and hope, something good comes out of the project, which more times than not, it's kind of like a 50-50 chance. But because in fact I already have another project I literally just canceled and I'm about to upload. It's a Kel-Tec Sub 2000. It's a folding gun. I tried to make one without planning it out and it didn't turn out well, but I'll make a video on that later. But right now I'm just gonna make a tutorial on how to make a bolt action 22 pistol that ejects shells. Now, it's not going to be true to life, like I said. It's just going to be a basic, bare bones, representation of what I could normally do out of paper. And I've been looking at some designs, and this design, a Ruger 22, is going to be the most basic design idea. It's not going to be true to what the design is, but just the general shape should be enough to help fit the idea of the build. In this case, just a bare bones, generic bolt action 22 pistol that ejects shells. That's it. So if you notice, the gun looks familiar. That's the inspiration. I'm not gonna copy it, piece, detail to detail. Just using the general shape as a general, just everything's gonna be generalized. So. I'm not going to get into measurements like it needs to be a certain diameter or a certain length, like 5 inches, 12 inches long, or, it has to be a certain diameter of like 3¼ inch or 3/4 of an inch. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to show the, just the actual basic process of what to do, because I honestly feel like I don't want to, bombard you with all these exact measurements. I just want you to see the general process and sort of just emulate it on your own. So I don't want you to, I don't want anyone to like stress out, oh, it has to be exactly this, this diameter or this, exact shape. No, I just want you to see what I normally do, just the most generic, general form. That way you can practice on your own, and that way when you have a gun in mind that you want to try and emulate, then you can try and improve that on your own terms and not having to copy mine. I just want to give, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to give people the general idea, but not the exact way to do it, because I want anyone to do it on their own way. That's how I want people to develop their own sort of style and approach to things. I don't want them to just see this template and copy that. I want them to actually learn a process and figure it out on their own, so that way they can learn and all that. So anyways, before I get on a whole tangent, basically just a simple video how to make a simple bolt action pistol that ejects shells. So let's get to it. It's the most, just beginners, no need for any tools. If you know anything about me, like I use other externals, materials to help stabilize and put more details on my guns, like paper clips. I like to use, these box cutter, whatever. But these are just a little few things that I use. But in this one, you're just gonna need these 3 things: paper, tape, and scissors. In fact, if you don't have scissors somehow, I could try and make a build, maybe. Yeah, let me know if you'd like to see that. Let me try and make a gun without using any sort of scissors, just paper and tape. So, anyways, let's get to it. I realized probably making a 22 bolt action pistol might be a little too much, so I'm just gonna generalize the idea of a 22 pistol being small. But in this case, I could make it an exact 22, but basically you don't have to make it exact size. This is like the size of a straw, if you want a nice little general benchmark, I guess you can go for. But essentially, just make this is the shells we're going to be using. Whenever I make shells for any shell ejecting gun, I try to make them very similar to diameter and length. So that's something you should also look into or keep in mind, per se. So in this case, if you want a good idea for how long shells typically are, they're typically up to an inch. So what I like to do is I like to use my own finger here, in this case the first segment, and just pretty much just gauge that size, and that's what I'm going to do here. So yeah. Oh, a little tip I like to do, a little trick, is I like to take just a shell I cut fresh, a shell I just cut fresh in this case, and just try and copy that, and it works for the most part. Sometimes they do a little bit trimming, but for the most part they all are pretty much the same size. So out of the whole roll of paper, and in case you're wondering, I rolled it lengthwise rather than widthwise. And basically, I still have a little. I can make maybe one or two more shells, but essentially, let's see, 8. That's a pretty good general amount I typically make for the shell ejectors. When I start getting into double stacked magazines, it becomes its own little issue. So right now we're just gonna be making a single stacked magazine, just for easier construction and just general easier to work with. So maybe one day I'll make a double stacked magazine. I haven't made one of those in years, but we'll see. But anyways, just 8 shells for me personally. You can make it 3 or 4, just whatever works for you. Like, I'm not expecting you to make 10 right off the bat, and if you do, more power to you. So yeah, when I make a magazine, I tend to take a loose measurement of all the shells lined up very loosely, and basically try and imagine where I would fold a piece of paper. And I also have to keep in mind that when I fold the paper, it's going to get a little bit more, a little bit bigger than how when you first started, as you add more layers. So that's something to keep in mind. And when it comes to magazines, depending on your capacity, I like to fold magazines from starting from the bottom and working my way up, rather than going this way. I like to go this way. That way your magazine, especially when you're working with paper, can have a little bit more structural rigidity and all that, so it doesn't like crumple as easily. That's one of my general ways that I like to make magazines. So what I'm going to basically do is take a measurement like right here, fold it, and then just fold around those the little shells in here. So basically, as you can tell, all these little indentations, you can tell that this is the length of the magazine and the width. And when I fold it all up, it all folds within itself. Like I said, I like to make at least 2 complete folds or rotations when I'm folding. That way, when I'm holding it loosely, but that way when I tape it together, it has at least like 2 pieces of paper worth of thickness, and that way when you actually add more tape onto it, it becomes more structurally superb for what you're trying to do. Now, it's not going to be the toughest thing, but for our job, it's going to be more than enough. Magazine taped up and ready to go. The next part that most of you should think about is when you cut the magazine, you also have to account for space on the bottom for the spring, in this case paper and tape. I'll go into that later, but basically you also have to account for some space on the bottom of the magazine, so when you compress the spring, it also has space to fully compress and not cause you issues. And knowing paper, it can be odd at times, so in my case I'm gonna give about my general go-to solution for this kind of paper type deal. For all this paper is at least 1.5 inches for me personally, but you can also get away with less than that depending on how many shells you're going to be pushing up with a paper spring. So just keep that in mind. Is also give some space on the bottom to give the spring to compress if you want. Just be careful of that. And so I'm going to probably cut the magazine right about here, and then yeah, see what happens. I already took 2 pieces of strips of paper that were cut and fit within the magazine, as you can see here. And basically, the way I like to make my magazines is accordion style. In this case, folded like this, and it should go without saying. But when you make your magazine, when you start folding it up, as such, let me see if I can get this. So when you start folding the magazine, the general profile of the edges should fit within the magazine itself, as such. Just to say, and in case you're wondering, what I'm gonna do next is, if you saw, I have another tutorial showing how I make paper springs. But basically, what I'm also gonna do next, when I cut, is I'm also gonna take a piece of tape right here and just cover the whole thing up right here, tape it, kind of like laminating it, and then fold it. That way, when you fold it, the tape will actually act a bit more as a spring, and it'll help toughen up the paper, because by itself, paper doesn't have any sort of springy qualities, if that's a word. But when you laminate it with some sort of flexible, I guess this is technically kind of plastic, or some sort of cellophane packaging tape, then it can actually act more as a spring. Not a really heavy duty one, but enough to get the job done in this case. Finish up the magazine, so this is gonna be the top. If you want to make the top piece a little bit stronger, seal it in 2 pieces of tape, and then that way when you cut it, it'll have the tape as a way to make it more stronger. So that way when you go and load the bullets into here or whatever, it ain't gonna rip easily if you mess up or something. So that's what I also like to do with my pieces, to seal off the top. As for the bottom, just take a piece of paper and fold it to fit on here. You can either do it on the outside or inside, or basically just get a piece of paper, cut it here, and tape it shut. The reason why mine has a cut is just because I mismeasured something here, so I'm trying to fix it. But basically, the basic concept is just cover the bottom any way you want, and yeah. So this is the magazine done. This is pretty much this is like 1/3 of the part done. The second one is the actual mechanism that pushes it, and then the third part is just making. There's a handle. I need to make the handle, the little part that holds the push rod, and then just the generic body. So, but basically, to show you the magazine working, sometimes occasionally you may have an issue where the little piece I told you about that you can laminate to hold the bullet in place may be a little too long. And in that case, you can trim it a little bit back by either going just cutting straight and then going around. I like to kind of round it off just for aesthetics, really. You don't really have to do that. That's just my habit. And then sometimes as well, it might be, it looks double stacked. It's meant to be single stacked, but that can happen, especially with paper. But basically, in the front here, you can cut a little V-notch, so that way when you do push the bullet out, it doesn't get stuck in the lips like on the front part, like it does sometimes. And that way when you do push it out, I need a pusher. There we go. I'm not sure how this is going to work on camera, but basically when you push the bullet out, when you push it out, you know, there you go. And then the spring pushes it up. And then, let me see if I can just do it there, that way, that way, that way, that way. And sometimes the spring does get stuck, that happens. Like that, and then there we go. So yeah, and now just to make the rest of the gun. I am making the rod first, just so I know it'll fit in the magazine. And I just basically used the leftover tube I had. Typically you just want to make a new one, but since here in this case it seemed to actually work out, since it's enough to actually push it through and rest over here. In this case, the rod, let me what I like to do is I like to use my thumb and just push in one of the ends of the rod and then tape it tightly shut, so it actually does a weird little angle like this. Reason for this is so when you push the rod in, or when it goes into the magazine as such, it doesn't have a hard time going into there and hitting the bullet or the shell, and kind of actually push out the other one below it out of the way, so that way it doesn't jam up as much. and then there we go. So basically I'm just going to build around that, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, so basically that's what I like to do. Typically the angle on the bottom, so when it hits the bullet, the one below it doesn't want to go with it, and it gets pushed out the way as such. You don't have to do that, but it's my way of helping the bullet and the mechanism work a little bit more smoothly, rather than having it completely match up to the shell casing's diameter. Or another thing you can do is make the push rod a little bit smaller than the diameter of the bullet, which would be a lot more better to do with anything bigger than a 22, like a 9mm type deal, or a shotgun or a rifle round. But in that case, you're gonna have to stuff it full of paper and then tape that shut, so it really has something to push against for the bullet to actually go out. But basically, just in general terms, just nice to have a little tube with a little bit of a tapered end, so it has easier time pushing out bullets through the magazine. So yeah. So made a handle, just a very loose handle, just a generic shape. Basically, all you have to do to make a handle in this case is just wrap a piece of paper and, you know, fold it around its edges, so it basically just makes a box within another box, essentially. And make sure it fits snugly, but not too tight to where you have to apply too much force. You know, or in this case, just enough to where if you shake it, you know, it ain't gonna come off. And basically, also make sure that it's not too tight to where, I don't know, I keep using the push thing with one hand. Make sure that basically make sure it's not too tight to where, which I'm running into right now. I'm trying to troubleshoot where the handle isn't too tight on the magazine to where it can't push up all the bullets. In this case, it seems to work, so, but I'm gonna have to iron that out somehow. But basically, just make sure to keep testing it, and as you make more progress, to make sure that it's something that go wonky along the way. But for the most part, that's pretty much most of the hard part done. I just gotta make the rear mount for the tube to hold it, and make the body around the pistol. Things that can happen while making guns, in this case, that has a shell ejecting system, is the tube here is going to actually be too short to work, because it's I still need to make a pretty good, decently sized holder, and then that's barely going to leave enough room to make a little knob to grab the bolt with. So in this case, what I like to do, and this can happen to you too, but if hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, it's good to just improvise. And in this case, what I'll do is I'll take another piece of paper and then literally just tape it to where it meets up with that piece, and then just tape it here, and then go off of that, and that way that'll give me much more real estate to work with on this build. So things like that happen, and if it does, it's not the end of the world. Just find a way to either fix it and just work with it. In this case, you can either just make a new tube that's completely just one complete tube, or you could do what I'm doing, is just tape one end, roll a piece of paper, and that'll extend the tube so I have more space to work with. Now it's pretty much extended to where I have a lot more room to work with, and now I just need to make a frame, just a basic frame that holds this piece and has enough to support the area where the shell will be held to when it gets ejected from the gun. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this little piece of paper and fold it a few times, and we'll work off of that. We'll see what happens. That I forgot to record, sometimes I get carried away, but basically I made a piece of paper, I folded it that way, just in a U shape, a very square U shape. I cut a hole in the middle to allow this piece to the handle to go through it. As you can see here, I made another box. In this case, cut up open one end, and I took a piece of paper and taped it at an angle for the shell to just basically, when you push it forward, the shell just goes out. And then tape the channel or the holder, the tube holder, onto the actual tube. So now you can pull it back, it stays there, and then, well, there's a spring in the way, so basically when you put the spring in here, give me a second, there we go. When you push the thing forward and you cock it, the spring or the shell falls out. So I'm gonna finish it up, and we'll have a gun in our hands. The gun's almost done. I just made another U-shape piece of paper. In this case, it's gonna be the top of the gun that covers it. It's just a simple little design, so don't expect it to look too good. But there you go, like that. And then I'll just make a simple little barrel, and that's pretty much the end of it. And then maybe after all this, I might take some time and make it look more pretty, but it's not really it's not really needed. This is pretty much the gun pretty much finished. Everything else at that point is just me being extra. So we'll see how this goes. So this is pretty much it. This is the pistol. Like I said, it's not gonna look pretty, but in terms of just functionality and mechanics, I hope that's like the most basic, bare bones way of doing any of this. I know down the road, when I feel like I've made enough tutorials, showcasing various mechanisms I use, then maybe I can start to move into more complex ways of doing basically the same mechanism, but making them look more, work more complex, like double stack magazines, angled magazines, like like a proper gun, not straight 90-degree angle. Maybe making them fully automatic, different ways of getting ejections, like using magnets on one of my paper guns. There's a lot of things I can go into. In fact, I might do a video on that too. But basically, this is a basic pistol. Once you see the actual video of how it works, this is the how-to and all that. So basically, that's it. So I guess it's kind of late. I guess you'll see the final pizzazzed version of this gun when you see the actual video go up. But right now, this is a basic pistol. I'm not gonna do any more. I need to go to sleep. But yeah, that's it. That's the bolt action pistol tutorial. I try to keep it very generalized, and just hopefully you guys get to see the more main of the procedure rather than like strict measurements, because I feel like you should just work that out, like just learn on your own pace and not worry too much about like I said, measurements, but just figure out the mechanics and how things work together, rather than trying to fuss too much about making it all like look or be small. If this gun ends up being as big as like this big or anything, don't worry about that. Just focus really on getting down the mechanics. I don't care if your tube ends up being 2 inches in diameter, and the gun ends up being the size of a bottle. If that's the way you can work and learn, then so be it. I'm not gonna stress too much about making it exactly like I said earlier in the video, exact to any sort of measurements. So that's it. That does it for this tutorial video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. My name is Tailman, as I prefer. And as always, you guys, be chill.